Imagine your child is drawing, lost in creativity. At first, the picture seems like any other. A house with details like chimneys, flowers in the yard, and even a large oak tree shading one side. But then your child starts adding peculiar details, things that seem oddly specific. A red door with a scratched brass knocker, windows with ivy creeping up the sides, and a cracked stone walkway leading up to the front porch. The house feels familiar, though you're sure you've never seen anything like it. Then your child finishes the picture and with a small grin says, "I remember it, Mom. That's where I used to live." If mysterious stories intrigue you, hit subscribe so you never miss another one. Now let's dive into the story. The child in question was a boy named Liam, only 5 years old. He was known to have a wild imagination, so his parents didn't think much of the drawing at first. But as he continued to add these vivid, almost lifelike details, they became curious. When they asked Liam where he'd seen this house, he shrugged and said he just knew it. Then he added, "I think it's far away, but I used to live there before." It wasn't the first time Liam had mentioned things that seemed beyond his age. His parents thought he was maybe talking about a dream or something he'd seen in a story. But every time he talked about this house, the details grew more specific. A cracked window on the second floor, a squeaky front step, even a room with lots of books that he loved. One evening, Liam's father, Tom, decided to test his son's knowledge almost as a game. "Can you tell me how to get to this house?" he asked, expecting Liam to describe something imaginative or make-believe. But to Tom's surprise, Liam answered right away, providing directions with an eerie accuracy. He described landmarks like a big white church and an old creaky bridge, as if he knew the way like the back of his hand. Tom and his wife Sarah shared a look. Their son had never been to any place with these landmarks. Curiosity turned to obsession, and one weekend they decided to look into it further. Using the landmarks Liam described, they researched nearby towns, but they couldn't find a match. Tom went a step further, sharing the story with some old college friends who lived out of state. One friend mentioned an area a few towns over, matching some of Liam's descriptions almost exactly. Could it be? Driven by a mix of excitement and disbelief, they decided to take a road trip. When they arrived in the area that Liam's father's friend had suggested, their hearts raced. Liam's directions grew more specific, guiding them down winding streets, through quiet neighborhoods, and past the exact landmarks he had described. They rounded a corner, and there it was. The house looked exactly as Liam had drawn it. A weathered red door, the brass knocker, ivy creeping up around the windows, and the giant oak casting its shadow across the yard. The family stood in stunned silence, trying to understand how a 5-year-old could have known about a house he'd never seen. Tom and Sarah exchanged looks, unsure what to do next. But Liam, without hesitation, walked right up to the house and reached for the knocker, as if he'd done it 1,000 times before. The door opened and an older man greeted them, surprised to see strangers at his doorstep. He seemed puzzled by Liam's recognition of the place, but when Tom and Sarah explained, the man was sympathetic, if not a little skeptical. However, when Liam began describing the inside of the house, mentioning details he shouldn't know, like the old-fashioned clock in the hallway and a hidden closet under the stairs, the man's face went pale. He invited them in. Inside, Liam continued to describe each room, pointing out features he couldn't have possibly known, like the old piano in the sitting room or a unique painting on the wall. The man, now visibly shaken, admitted he'd had the house for decades but had never shown it to anyone outside his family. When Liam led the way to a small, unused room in the attic, filled with dust-covered bookshelves and an old rocking chair, the man stopped them, telling the family that it had been his late wife's favorite room, untouched since she passed away years ago. By the time they left, Liam's parents were deeply unsettled. How could their young son know a place like this, down to such intimate details? They asked Liam about it on the drive back, but he seemed unbothered by the mystery. To him, it was simple. "I used to live there, that's all," he said, drifting off to sleep as if it was the most ordinary thing in the world. The encounter left his parents with questions they couldn't answer, a strange story that would stay with them for years. The man from the house stayed in touch too, remaining equally baffled but somehow comforted, as if Liam had offered a piece of his own past. Whether it was an uncanny memory, an unexplainable coincidence, or something more profound, it became a mystery they accepted without understanding. A mystery about the strange connections that sometimes arise in life and the inexplicable familiarity of places we've never been.